Welcome to another episode of Ring Them Bells, where we interview top scholars and authors to help you rediscover the narrative of the Bible on its own terms. One of those scholars that we have been fortunate to build a relationship with is Dr. Matthew Bates. We've interviewed Bates multiple times concerning his work on what many call the gospel allegiance model. Recently, Dr. Bates' latest book, Beyond the Salvation Wars, has received a fair share of unfair pushback from notable evangelical authorities. First, the Gospel Coalition published an unfavorable review, and then almost 2 months later, Dr. Albert Moeller and 3 other professors from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary attempted to refute Bates' gospel allegiance model as heretical or dangerous. Personally, what Bates has taught me is to understand the gospel as the announcement of the royal kingship and authority of the one true Messiah, Jesus. It is understanding the implications of Jesus as king that require allegiance toward the one true God and away from the gods of the nations. As Bates points out, this allegiance is fully identifiable and operable through substance and a redefined understanding of the word pistis or faith. Recently, pastor and author Anthony Delgado sat down with us and we discussed the work of Matthew Bates and the gospel allegiance model. He, like myself, believes much of the failure from the Gospel Coalition and even Moeller is that they have hitched the definition of the gospel to an improper definition of the atonement. Let's join that conversation together now. Stay tuned, my friends. The beginning is near. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So one thing that I wanted to get to that you just talked about was another great scholar and mutual friend of both of ours is Matthew Bates. And I think this is where it just correlates very well with what we're talking about, because we're just talking about the kingdom gospel and the fact of how this is all kind of like new for us, right? That Messiah meant king. This whole king side of it was something that for whatever reason wasn't very prominent in my upbringing. And Matthew Bates and his work and the gospel allegiance model is helping us return to a biblical understanding of the kingship and lordship of Jesus. So we've had him on the show multiple times. I love his focus. I was wondering if you could just tell us about Matthew Bates and the gospel allegiance model and your experience with it.
Yeah. I think I'd mentioned this earlier in our recording that when I read Gospel Salvation by Allegiance Alone, that it was like, it wasn't mind-blowing. It was, but it was amazing. It was like, it had so much explanatory power.
Mm.
And what's interesting to me is that, and this is a theme of the gospel is bigger than you think also. It's that people have confused the effects of the gospel with the substance of the gospel.
Mm.
And gospel allegiance is it's honestly, allegiance is the altar call, if you will. Gospel allegiance is how you get from the substance of the gospel to the effects of the gospel. And what we're seeing in contemporary evangelicalism, especially in sort of this neo-evangelical fundamentalist form, some of the, and even a lot of these guys in my own tribe that have spoken out against Bates' new book, and then some, Gospel Coalition guys that are, they're so focused on their view of the atonement. But here's the problem. They see their view of the atonement as the gospel. And so if your view of the atonement is the gospel, then you're actually, well, I should say this. You're right to respond negatively to Matthew Bates' work if the gospel is your atonement theory.
Mm-hmm.
So they're actually responding, in that sense, they're responding correctly. I think in a lot of these responses, there's a lot of mockery and outright angst, divisive angst, that is not a good reflection of Christian character.
Mm.
I think that's what bothered me about specifically the TGC one that I responded to on my website. I didn't respond to the SBTS guys because I didn't think they were as brash, uh, and I didn't think it needed the same type of response from me. I mean, who am I anyway? But I tried to get a response from someone.
You're somebody.
Yeah, but nobody they're listening to. So I just wanted to point out that, like, all of these controversial different arguments about atonement theories, they are not the substance of the gospel. They are not the response to the gospel.
Yeah.
And so allegiance is fundamental. And the mistake that I think a lot of people have made with Matthew Bates' work is that they want to make their atonement theory the gospel and allegiance a product of the gospel.
Yeah.
And that comes from a misunderstanding, I think, of Martin Luther's conception of faith. But I think Luther was orthodox on this. I think that a lot of the neo-evangelical fundamentalists are have flipped it.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think
sounds like works righteousness.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happened with so much is like the atonement, and when we specifically bring it into PSA, penal substitutionary atonement, like that, like growing up, like that was it. Christ died for your sins. Like this is like if you budge on anything, like I don't even care if you add like a dot to the I, like you are a heretic. This is out. Like there's like such a strong guarded protection around that, like you said, because they put the atonement as the gospel, and rightfully so. You want to guard the gospel, so if you think that that's it, you're going to make it more than you should, and that's what you were just saying. So I don't get caught up in title debates personally. Like I stick to the narrative. Like even like penal substitutionary atonement, I don't like that. Like even when you did like the amillennialism, premillennialism, I don't get caught personally. I'm not hating on anybody else does. I just don't get caught up in these debates of these terms. I really try to focus on the narrative and stay there, because then if I stay out of the arguments, I feel like I'm closer to the truth. So, and that's what I do. So don't think that like I'm like saying I'm pro PSA or anti PSA or whatever. I'm not. I'm pro gospel, and us trying to get to the root of the truth of it. We need your help. Ring Them Bells is a nonprofit organization where every dollar donated goes right back into the mission of spreading the good news and helping those in need. The main ministry of Ring Them Bells is serving those in need in the name of our King Jesus. Over the past year, we have fed over 2,000 meals, and next year, we want to double that. We can't do this without your support. Everything we create here and all of the food that we serve is free because it's paid for by generous viewers just like you. If you feel led to donate and join the mission with us here at Ring Them Bells, click the Give Butter link in the notes and comments of this video. If you can't support us financially, please continue to like and share the content, as this helps us so much with spreading the good news about what Jesus has done for our world.